I heard Courtney's voice through the door. Once Lorraine finishes the boring stuff, I'll redo everything. Use her money, make it cute. My hand stopped mid-knock. 3 months of planning. Everything in place. And she was planning to erase me. I looked at the contracts in my folder. Everyone signed by me, paid by me, owned by me. She didn't know that yet. But she would. Drop your name and where you're watching from in the comments. I randomly choose from subscribers to feature your name as a character in my stories. Subscribe so you don't miss out. I was 58 years old, retired for 2 years, when my phone rang on a Tuesday morning. Tyler's name lit up the screen and my heart lifted because he rarely called during work hours. "Mom," he said, his voice bright with excitement that reminded me of when he was 10 years old. "I have amazing news." I set down my coffee, smiling already because that tone meant something good. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Courtney's pregnant," he said, and I heard him take a breath like he'd been holding it in. "We're gonna have a baby." My chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in 2 years, pure joy mixed with purpose. For 24 months I'd been invisible, nobody needing my skills or my opinions or my presence. "Oh, Tyler," I whispered, pressing my hand to my mouth. "That's wonderful. That's so wonderful." I'd raised Tyler alone after his father left when he was 25 years of double shifts and skipped meals and worn-out shoes so he could have new ones. I'd promised myself he'd never feel the instability I felt as a child. He'd have a happy family. And now he was building one. And Mom, Tyler continued, Courtney was wondering if you could help plan the baby shower. She knows you used to be an event planner, and she'd really love your expertise. Something warm bloomed in my chest, spreading through my body like sunlight. For 30 years, I'd built a reputation in Seattle's event planning industry, starting as a florist's assistant in 1993 for $8 an hour. By 2000, I was coordinating weddings for 200 guests. By 2010, I had corporate clients, product launches, and galas and fundraisers. My biggest event was a tech company's anniversary party, 500 guests, with a $200,000 budget that I'd managed flawlessly. I'd retired at 56, not because I wanted to, but because the industry was changing. Younger planners with Instagram followings were getting the contracts, and clients wanted influencer-friendly events, not timeless elegance. I'd felt obsolete, like a perfectly good appliance that nobody wanted anymore. Until now. "I'd be honored," I said immediately, my voice catching. "Absolutely honored." "Perfect," Tyler said, relief clear in his tone. "Courtney will be so excited." We hung up and I sat there holding my phone, staring at the wall where my event photos hung in neat frames. 3 decades of work, 300 successful events, 1 failure 25 years ago that I'd spent a career making up for. A venue double booking I'd missed, my biggest client lost. 6 months of rebuilding my reputation brick by brick. Since then, I'd kept perfect records, never made the same mistake twice. This baby shower would be flawless. For Tyler, for my grandchild, for the family I wanted us to be. I spent 3 days preparing for Courtney's first visit, like I used to for high-paying clients. I dug out my old portfolios from the garage, wiped dust off leather binders that smelled like the past. I created budget spreadsheets with 3 tiers, modest and standard and luxury, even though I knew I'd pay regardless of which she chose. I researched 20 venues in the Seattle area, narrowed it to 5, called each one to check availability and pricing. By the time Courtney arrived that Friday afternoon, I had a presentation ready that would have impressed my most demanding corporate clients. She knocked and I opened the door with a smile that felt rusty from disuse. Courtney stood there in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, her hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. "Lorraine, hi," she said, stepping inside and glancing around my small condo. "Thank you so much for doing this. Tyler told me you're like the best event planner in Seattle." Pride flickered through me because it had been so long since anyone acknowledged what I'd built. "I'm excited to help. I said, gesturing to my dining table where I'd spread everything out. This is going to be beautiful. We sat down and I opened my portfolio, showing her photos of past baby showers I'd coordinated. Elegant table settings, balloon arches that looked like clouds, centerpieces with fresh flowers, and hand-calligraphed place cards. Courtney looked at each photo for maybe 3 seconds before pulling out her phone. Her thumb moved across the screen with practiced ease, scrolling through something while I explained my vision. "These are nice," she said without looking up. "But I was thinking something more Instagram-worthy. You know?" I kept my smile steady, even as doubt crept in, like cold water seeping through a crack. "Of course. What did you have in my mind?" She turned her phone toward me, showing photos from influencer baby showers. Huge balloon installations that looked like they cost thousands, neon signs with clever sayings, elaborate flower walls designed for photos rather than people. "Something like this," she said, her eyes bright. "It's so trendy right now." My professional eye saw it immediately. These decorations would cost 3 times my planned budget. But I didn't say that because Tyler's happiness mattered more than money. "I can arrange that," I said slowly. "It'll increase the budget a bit, but it's doable." "Oh, you're the best, Lorraine," she said lightly, already looking back at her phone. Not grateful, just entitled, like my agreement was expected rather than appreciated. I pushed the feeling away and showed her my budget spreadsheets. "I was thinking around $8,000, I said. "That would cover venue, catering, decorations, everything." $8,000, Courtney repeated, her eyes widening slightly. "That's a lot." "Don't worry," I said quickly, my words tumbling out. "I'll cover it as my gift to you and Tyler." Her face lit up in a way that should have warned me, a brightness that wasn't quite joy. "Really? Oh my God, Lorraine, that's so generous." "You're amazing." We discussed themes and guest lists and timelines for another hour. Courtney showed me more Instagram photos, each one more expensive than the last, and I took notes with the precision I'd learned over 30 years. When she left, she hugged me briefly, her perfume expensive and floral. "Thanks again," she called over her shoulder. "You're the best MIL ever." MIL, not Lorraine, not even my name anymore. Just a category, a function, not a person. I closed the door and looked at my notes, at the budget that had already climbed to $10,000 in my head. My Social Security check was $2,100 a month. Rent for my small condo was $950, utilities $180, groceries $400, health insurance co-pays $150. What was left? $420 for everything else. This baby shower, $10,000, was 5 months of my entire income. Not 5 months of discretionary spending, 5 months of everything. But I had been saving for 2 years, planning for the day Tyler gave me grandchildren. This was what I had saved for, this was my legacy. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I sat in the office of the Garden Terrace, a venue I'd worked with back in my prime. The manager was someone I'd known for 15 years. Margaret Chen, who'd always respected my work. "So, Ms. Lorraine," Margaret said, reviewing the contract, "you're the primary contact and responsible for payment." "Yes, that's correct," I said, initialing each page with the same careful precision I'd used for 3 decades. Tyler had offered to put the contract in his and Courtney's names the week before. "Let me handle it, Mom," he'd said. "You've done enough." But I'd insisted, gently and firmly, because 30 years had taught me something important. "I'm the planner," I'd told him. "In my business, the coordinator is always the primary contact. That way vendors don't get confused with multiple people giving instructions." He'd shrugged, easy and trusting. "Sure, if you want." I did want, because 25 years ago, I'd learned a hard lesson. The person whose name is on the contract has the power. "Perfect," Margaret said, sliding the final copy across her desk. "We'll send all correspondence to your email." I filed the contract in my folder, every document labeled and dated in my neat handwriting. As I drove home through Seattle's gray November rain, I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Needed, useful, like I mattered again. I was wrong about what mattered. 2 weeks into planning, I noticed the first small crack in Courtney's gratitude. She came over for our second meeting, but her attitude had shifted slightly, like a door that was open now stood ajar. I'd spent hours selecting decoration samples, 3 options for table runners in ivory and champagne and blush. I spread them on my coffee table, each one carefully folded in tissue paper with a sticky note in my handwriting. Courtney glanced at them while checking her phone. It's nice, but it's a bit traditional, she said without looking up. I was thinking something more Instagram-worthy. I felt my professional pride prickle, because traditional meant timeless. It meant elegant. It meant I knew what I was doing. But I kept my voice steady. What did you have in mind? She showed me more photos, influencer parties with decorations that screamed look at me rather than celebrate with me. Something like this, she said. More colorful, more fun. My eye caught the price tags I could estimate. Balloon installations at $1,500. Flower walls at $2,000. That'll increase the budget, I said carefully. But it's doable. Oh, you're the best, Lauren, she said. The word's automatic now, not grateful. That night I called Vanessa Rodriguez, my former colleague and closest friend from the business. We'd worked together for 20 years, coordinated hundreds of events, and she was the only person who understood what this industry took from you. Am I being too sensitive? I asked after explaining Courtney's attitude shift. Different how? Vanessa asked, her voice cautious. I don't know, I said, staring at my ceiling. At first, she was so grateful, but now she acts like I'm just helping, like I'm her assistant instead of the person paying for everything. Vanessa laughed, not unkindly, a sound that held years of experience. Welcome to the world of daughters-in-law, she said. They always want control. But I'm doing this for free and paying for everything, I said, hearing the hurt in my own voice. I know, honey, Vanessa replied gently. But some people don't appreciate generosity. They see it as their right. Maybe I'm overthinking it, I said. She's pregnant and stressed. I should be more understanding. You're too nice, Lorraine, Vanessa said firmly. Don't let her walk all over you. But I told myself it was for Tyler's happiness, for the family I wanted us to be. I could swallow a little disrespect if it meant being part of my grandchild's life. The following week, Courtney texted at 11 p.m. My influencer friends want to come. Can we add 10 more people? I was already in bed, reading on my tablet, but I sat up and calculated quickly. 50 people to 60, another $1,500 for catering, more chairs, more decorations. My savings account balance flashed in my mind, the number dropping. That's fine, I typed back. I'll adjust everything. 3 dots appeared immediately. Thanks, you're amazing. 3 days later, another text arrived while I was grocery shopping. Actually, can we remove some people, your friends, from the list? I don't really know them, and I want it to be more intimate. I stood in the cereal aisle, staring at my phone. Your friends, like they were strangers, like they were excess baggage. These were women I'd worked with for 30 years. Margaret, who'd been at my retirement party. Susan, who'd sent me a Christmas card every year since 1998. But I typed back, of course, it's your party. Thanks for understanding, she replied. You're the best MIL ever. MIL again, that acronym that reduced me to a category. Not Lorraine, who was paying $10,000. Not Tyler's mother, who'd raised him alone. Just MIL, a checkbox, a role. I put my phone in my purse and finished my shopping, but the cereal boxes blurred slightly. 1 week later, I arrived at Courtney and Tyler's apartment with more decoration samples, new ones that matched her Instagram aesthetic. I'd spent 3 hours at a specialty store in Capitol Hill, selecting options that were trendy and photogenic and expensive. I knocked and Courtney opened the door, phone in one hand. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Heather's here, my friend I told you about. Heather sat on their modern gray couch, also on her phone, also an influencer with perfect hair and a smile that looked practiced. Their apartment was what real estate agents called modern luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Elliott Bay, marble countertops in the kitchen, one of those Edison bulb chandeliers that cost $800. My condo had carpet from 2005 and a kitchenette, but I owned mine outright. She rented this palace for $3,200 a month, more than my entire Social Security check. And she just asked me for another $2,000 for Instagram-worthy decorations. I spread the new samples on their coffee table, careful arrangements of colors and textures I'd agonized over. Heather looked at them and laughed, a bright sound that cut through my professional pride. Oh my God, Court, this is so mom-ish. Courtney joined in, giggling like they were sharing a private joke at my expense. Right, it's like my mom's generation. I stood there holding a sample of ribbon, their laughter turning my face hot. I mean, no offense, Lorraine, Courtney said casually, her tone light. But this is my baby shower, and I need it to be on brand for my Instagram. I took a slow breath, calling on 30 years of dealing with difficult clients. What would you prefer? I asked evenly, my voice not shaking. She showed me photos on her phone, decorations that would cost another $2,000 minimum. This, she said, pointing. Can you get this? I did the math silently, the budget climbing past $12,000 now. That's quite expensive, Courtney, I said carefully. But you said you'd cover it right, she replied with an innocent smile that didn't reach her eyes. I mean, if it's too much, I understand, but I really want my shower to be perfect. Tyler's face flashed in my mind. My son, who I'd raised alone, who I'd protected from every hardship. I'll make it happen, I said. Yay, thanks, Lorraine, she said, already turning back to Heather. You're seriously the best. I left 20 minutes later with a list of new requirements and a budget that had grown by $4,000. That Saturday, Tyler and Courtney came to my condo for dinner, the first time in 3 months they'd accepted my invitation. I'd made pot roast the way Tyler liked it as a child, with carrots and potatoes, and that specific seasoning blend he used to request. For 2 years, I'd been cooking for one, meals eaten in front of the TV, leftovers that lasted days. Making a meal for 3 felt like a gift I was giving myself. We sat at my small dining table, and I watched Tyler eat, with the appreciation of someone who remembered this taste. This is amazing, Mom, he said. Just like I remember. Courtney picked at hers, scrolling through her phone between bites. Then she set down her fork and smiled at me. Tyler, your mom is being a bit controlling about the shower. I looked up sharply, my fork frozen midair. Controlling? I mean, not in a bad way, she laughed, the sound light and dismissive. But I want some input too. You know, it's my baby shower. Tyler looked at me, his expression caught between us. Mom, maybe Courtney should have more say in the planning. Of course, I said quietly, setting down my fork because my hands had started shaking. I'm just trying to help. I know, and I appreciate it, Courtney continued, her voice sweet. But sometimes it feels like you're making all the decisions. I thought that's what you wanted when you asked for my help, I said. Help? Yeah, Courtney replied with a smile that held something sharp beneath it. Not takeover. I'm sorry if it felt that way, I said, forcing myself to stay calm and professional. Tyler jumped in, his voice gentle but firm. Mom, Courtney just wants to feel involved. She is involved, I said, hearing my own voice rise slightly. Every decision goes through her. But you get so intense about it, Courtney said, leaning back in her chair. Like it's just a party, you know. Just a party, those words hit me like ice water. 100 hours of work, $12,000 of my savings, 30 years of professional expertise. Just a party. I want it to be perfect for you, I managed to say. I know, but perfection is subjective, she replied, her tone patient like she was explaining something simple to a child. What you think is perfect might not be what I want. Then tell me what you want and I'll make it happen, I said. Courtney sighed, a sound of exasperation. Okay, fine, but can you just relax a bit? You're making me stressed. Yeah, Mom, Tyler added, his words a betrayal I felt in my chest. Courtney's pregnant, she doesn't need extra stress. Words died in my throat because my own son, the child I'd raised alone, saw me as the problem. Not Courtney's demands, not her insults, not her constant changes. Me. Of course, I said softly. I'll step back. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence, broken only by the sound of forks on plates. When they left, Tyler hugged me briefly at the door. Thanks for understanding, Mom, he whispered. I know you mean well. I closed the door and stood in my empty condo, looking at the pot roast I'd spent 2 hours making. Most of it was still uneaten. I wrapped it in foil and put it in the fridge, knowing I'd be eating it alone for the next week. Then I sat on my couch and stared at the wall where my event photos hung. 3 decades of building something, 2 years of being invisible, 3 months of trying to matter again. And just a party was all it meant to them. 3 weeks before the shower, I drove to Courtney and Tyler's apartment for final confirmations. I had a folder with me, vendor contracts and timeline schedules, and last-minute details that needed approval. I knocked on their door but got no answer, even though I could hear voices inside. The door was slightly open, not wide, but enough that I could see a sliver of light cutting across the hallway floor. I raised my hand to knock again, knuckles an inch from the wood. Then I heard my name. Lorraine's been organizing everything, but honestly it's going to look so dated. Courtney's voice, clear and casual like she was discussing the weather. My hand froze in midair, fingers going numb. I know, right? Courtney continued, and I heard laughter. Heather, probably. Like she's trying so hard, but her taste is just old. Everything she picks screams suburban mom from 2005. Each word landed like a physical blow. Dated and old and suburban mom in 2005. My heart started pounding, not with anger yet, but with something worse. Dread. The kind you feel when you know you're about to hear something that will change everything. I should have knocked, should have announced myself. But I didn't move, couldn't move. Actually, I'm thinking once she's done with all the boring stuff, Courtney said, her voice bright with amusement. Booking contracts, paying, I might just redo the decorations myself. Use her money, but make it actually cute. More laughter, light and careless, like breaking glass. Boring stuff, use her money, make it actually cute. My vision blurred at the edges. She won't even know until the day of, Courtney continued. And what's she gonna do? Ruin her own grandson's baby shower? Silence for a moment, then Heather's voice. You're terrible. Courtney laughed. I'm practical. I looked down at my hand, still raised to knock. My fingers were trembling, no, my entire arm was shaking. I lowered it slowly, afraid the movement would make a sound, afraid they'd know I was there. I backed away from the door, 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The hallway carpet muffled my footsteps, and I reached the elevator and pressed the button. It dinged. Too loud, I flinched. But the door opened, and I stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. I don't remember walking to my car. I don't remember unlocking it, sitting down, closing the door. When awareness returned, I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The folder with all my careful planning sat in the passenger seat. Vendor contracts, timeline schedules, decoration samples, labeled in my neat handwriting. Boring stuff. Dated, old, suburban mom from 2005, use her money, make it actually cute. Each phrase played in my head on repeat, a recording I couldn't stop. I thought about Courtney 2 years ago, when Tyler first brought her to my house. She'd arrived with homemade lemon bars, her hands trembling slightly as she handed them to me. Tyler told me you love lemon, she'd said, her smile shy and genuine. I wanted to make a good impression. I'd hugged her then, thinking finally, a daughter. 3 months ago, before Tyler even knew about the pregnancy, Courtney had called me crying with joy. "Lorraine, I'm pregnant," she'd whispered. "I haven't told anyone yet. I needed to tell you first. You're going to be a grandmother." Her voice had broken with emotion, real and raw. I'd cried with her then, believing we were family. Where did that person go, I wondered? Or had she never existed at all? My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out with shaking hands and saw Vanessa's name. "Lunch today. Want to meet at our usual spot?" I typed back with fingers that could barely hold the phone. "Can we talk? It's urgent." 3 dots appeared immediately. "My place now." I started the car and drove through Seattle's rain to Vanessa's house in Ballard. She opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "What happened?" she asked. I told her everything, every word I'd overheard, standing in her kitchen while she made tea neither of us would drink. "That little," Vanessa started, then stopped herself. "Lorraine, you can't let her get away with this." "But Tyler," I said weakly, my voice barely a whisper. "Tyler is a grown man," Vanessa replied sharply, setting down the teapot with a clank. "You've been a doormat long enough." "I just want them to be happy," I said. "At the cost of your dignity?" Vanessa asked, her eyes fierce. "Your reputation, Lorraine. You're a professional. You worked 30 years to build that. Don't let some Instagram influencer destroy it." I sat in silence, knowing she was right, but not wanting to admit it. "What should I do?" I asked finally. "Check the contracts," she said. "Everything's in your name, right?" I pulled out my folder, scanning each document with professional eyes. The Garden Terrace contract, Lorraine's signature, Lorraine's credit card. Catering agreement, Lorraine's name, Lorraine's payment. Decoration orders, Lorraine's account. "Yes," I confirmed, my voice steadier now. "Everything." "Then you have options," Vanessa said. "Use them." I drove home in a daze, Vanessa's words echoing in my head. "You have options. Use them." But what options did I really have against someone who saw me as boring stuff, as a wallet, to use and discard? 1 week before the shower, I sat at my dining table drinking coffee at 6 a.m. I hadn't slept, my mind replaying Courtney's laughter and her casual cruelty. My laptop sat in front of me, screen dark, waiting. I opened it and checked my email, a habit from 30 years of vendor correspondence. One new message, sender Courtney. Subject line, baby shower update. Something cold settled in my stomach as I clicked it, expecting another change to the guest list or decorations. "Hi, Lorraine," it began in that cheerful tone she used when asking for something. I read the first line slowly. "I've been thinking a lot about the baby shower." I frowned. What was there to think about? Everything was planned and paid for. And I've decided I want it to be more intimate, just my close friends. Just my close friends, not our family, not Tyler's family, not the woman who'd paid $12,000. My chest tightened as I scrolled down. "I know you've been helping with the planning, and I really appreciate that." Helping, that word again, reducing 100 hours of professional work to helping like I'd picked up groceries. But I think it's best if this is just for my generation. I stopped breathing. Read it again, slower this time. Just for my generation. My hands started trembling, and I set down my coffee cup carefully because I could feel the urge to throw it. I scrolled to the end. "You understand, right? I'll still send you pictures, XOXO Courtney." I'll still send you pictures, like I was a distant relative who lived too far away to attend. Like I hadn't spent $12,000, 100 hours, 30 years of expertise. Like I wasn't Tyler's mother. I read the email again, then again, 5 times total. Each time I noticed something new, something worse. Helping, not planning or organizing or paying. My generation as if I was ancient and expired and irrelevant. You understand, right? Not a question, but a command, an expectation that I'd swallow this quietly. Zaxo, the cruelest part, the fake affection wrapping an insult. A voice in my head whispered, my mother's voice from years ago, when she taught me to stand up for myself. When people try to erase you, make them remember you existed. I closed the laptop, opened it again, pulled out my file cabinet from beside my desk. I started pulling out contracts, every single one. The garden terrace, my signature in blue ink. Catering agreement, my credit card number. Decorations, my account. Invitations, my approval. Every document, every receipt, every email confirmation. Not one with Courtney's name, not one that gave her any legal claim. I spread them on my dining table like evidence in a trial. 30 years in event planning had taught me 3 rules that I'd never broken. 1, always get it in writing. 2, keep copies of everything. 3, the person who has documentation wins. I had been documenting since day 1, not because I expected this, but because I never worked without a paper trail. I pulled out my phone and called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. She uninvited me, I said without preamble. What? Vanessa nearly shouted. Courtney, I said calmly, my voice steadier than I felt. She sent me an email. She doesn't want me at the baby shower I organized and paid for. Silence for 3 seconds. Then Vanessa's voice tight with controlled anger. Lorraine, you know what you have to do. I'm not sure I can, I said, looking at Tyler's photo on my wall. Tyler will never forgive me. Tyler is a grown man who's letting his wife disrespect his mother. Vanessa replied. Lorraine, you've been accommodating for 3 months. It's time to stand up for yourself. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. You're right, I said. So what are you going to do? She asked. I looked at Courtney's email, at my contracts, at the guest list of 50 people who trusted me. I'm going to share the truth, I said. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Good, she said finally. They need to know who they're really celebrating. We talked for another hour, Vanessa helping me think through every detail. By the time we hung up, I knew exactly what to do. 3 days before the shower, I sat my computer at 6 in the morning again. I still hadn't slept, but my decision was crystal clear. I opened Gmail and clicked Compose, staring at the blank screen. I pulled up my contacts and began selecting names, each one deliberate. Margaret Chen, who'd worked with me for 15 years. Susan Park, who'd sent me Christmas cards since 1998. Patricia Williams, who'd been at my retirement party. 50 names, 50 people who'd trusted me over decades. I moved all 50 addresses to the BCC field, blind copy so they wouldn't see each other's names. Courtney wouldn't know who knew until it was too late, couldn't prepare a counter-narrative, couldn't do damage control. By the time she realized what happened, the truth would already be spreading. I'd learned a long time ago that timing is everything. Subject line, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. Regarding the baby shower, I typed. Simple, professional, no emotion visible. Dear friends, I began, the same opening I'd used for 1,000 emails over 30 years. I hope this email finds you well. Muscle memory took over as I typed. I wanted to share some information with you regarding Courtney's baby shower scheduled for this Saturday at the garden terrace. This morning I received the attached email from Courtney informing me that I am no longer invited to attend. I paused, reading those words, feeling their weight. I want to clarify a few facts, I continued. I contracted the garden terrace under my name. I paid for all arrangements, including venue, catering, and decorations. Total cost $12,000. I have attached copies of the contracts and receipts for your reference. My fingers moved across the keyboard with the precision of 3 decades. I will not be attending the event as Courtney has requested. However, I wanted you to be aware of the circumstances. I wish Courtney and Tyler all the best. Sincerely, Lorraine. I attached Courtney's uninvited email first, then the venue contract showing my signature and my credit card. The catering agreement with my name, the decoration orders with my account number, every receipt I'd carefully filed. Each attachment felt like laying down a card in poker, showing my hand. I read the email 3 times, changed a few words for clarity. Every word mattered because this would be forwarded and screenshot and shared. It needed to be perfect, factual, impossible to dispute. My cursor hovered over the send button. I thought about Tyler, about family dinners and Christmas mornings and holding my grandchild someday. I thought about being welcome in my son's life or being the villain in their story. 3 seconds of hesitation. That's all I allowed myself. Then I heard Courtney's voice in my head. Use her money, but make it actually cute. She won't even know. What's she gonna do? What was I going to do? This. I clicked send. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then swoosh, the sound of an email leaving my outbox and entering the world. Irreversible, permanent, done. I closed my laptop and walked to my window. The sun was rising over Seattle, painting the sky pink and gold through the rain clouds. I just destroyed my daughter-in-law's baby shower, maybe my relationship with my son, possibly my chance to know my grandchild. I poured myself tea and waited for my phone to ring. It took 3 hours. Courtney's name lit up my screen, and I answered calmly. Hello. What did you do? She screamed, her voice shrill and panicked. Good morning, Courtney, I said evenly. Don't good morning me, she yelled. You sent that email to everyone. You had no right. I shared your email, yes, I said, keeping my voice steady. I thought the guests should know the full context. That was private, she shouted, her breath coming fast. You sent it to me, I replied simply. I'm allowed to share what's sent to me. You're trying to ruin my baby shower, she said, her voice breaking now. I'm simply providing facts, I said. You uninvited me, I informed the guests, that's all. Everyone is canceling, she cried, and I heard real tears now. They're saying I'm ungrateful. They're saying I used you. Are you? I asked quietly. Silence, heavy and thick. This is my baby shower, she finally said, her voice desperate. I get to decide who comes. Of course, I agreed, and I get to decide whether to pay for it. You already paid, she said quickly, grasping at straws. The contracts are done. The contracts are in my name, Courtney, I replied, letting that truth settle. Not yours. More silence as the implication sank in. What does that mean? She whispered. It means I'm the client, I said clearly. Not you. Please, Lorraine, I'm sorry, she said, crying harder now. Can we just... I was stressed, I didn't mean. You called my work dated, I interrupted, my voice still calm. Old suburban mom from 2005, boring stuff, use her money. Her breath caught sharply. You heard that? She whispered. I heard everything, I said. The line went dead. I set down my phone and looked at my email inbox. Messages were already arriving, one after another. Lorraine, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I won't be attending. This is unacceptable. You planned and paid for everything. I'm canceling. Courtney has been posting like she did all the work. I'm disgusted. 50 guests became 5 within hours. Only Courtney's closest influencer friends remained. Courtney tried damage control on Instagram that afternoon. Hey guys, there's been some misunderstanding about the baby shower she posted with a photo of herself looking sad. My MIL is upset because I wanted a more intimate celebration. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. The comments tore her apart within minutes. You uninvited the woman who paid for everything. That's not a misunderstanding. Your MIL deserves better, read another comment. She deleted the post, but screenshots had already spread across Seattle's event planning community. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues. Lorraine, is this true? I can't believe she did that to you. You taught her a lesson she needed. The day of the shower, Courtney arrived at the garden terrace with her 5 remaining friends. I wasn't there, but Margaret Chen called me that afternoon to tell me what happened. Lorraine, Margaret said, her voice mixing amusement and sympathy. You should know what happened today. I listened as she described the scene. Courtney had walked up to the entrance in a designer dress, phone in hand, probably ready to document everything for Instagram. The venue manager, a young man Margaret had trained, stopped her at the door. Excuse me, are you Ms. Lorraine? He'd asked. No, I'm Courtney, she'd said. This is my baby shower. I'm sorry, he'd replied professionally. Our contract is with Ms. Lorraine. She is the primary contact and the person who paid. I know, but she's my mother-in-law, Courtney had explained desperately. She organized this for me. I understand, the manager had said, but Ms. Lorraine called yesterday. She said she won't be attending, and she hasn't authorized anyone else to use the space. She can't do that, Courtney had cried. I'm afraid she can, ma'am, he'd replied. She's the client. If you'd like to use the venue, you'll need her written permission. Margaret laughed softly on the phone. She called you 6 times, Lorraine, the manager said. They could hear her phone ringing in the parking lot. I'd let every call go to voicemail. Courtney and her friends left. Margaret continued. The decorations are still set up. $12,000 worth of Instagram perfect beauty with nobody to see it. Thank you for telling me, I said. Lorraine, Margaret said warmly. I've known you for 15 years. You're one of the best in this business. What she did was unforgivable. I appreciate that, I said. That evening, I sat in my dining room surrounded by 30 years of event photos on the walls. My phone kept ringing, Tyler's name over and over, but I let it go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to one message. Mom, his voice said, tight with anger and confusion. Please call me back. We need to talk about what you did. What I did, I whispered to my empty condo. Not what she did, not what you let her do, what I did. I deleted the voicemail with one tap. Some conversations can wait. Some bridges burn for a reason. Vanessa texted me as the sun set. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I replied. It's over. Proud of you, she wrote back. You stood up for yourself. I looked at the photos on my walls, hundreds of events over 3 decades, thousands of happy clients, one failure 25 years ago that I'd spent a career making up for. One daughter-in-law who thought she could use me and discard me. She'd been wrong. My phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. Ms. Lorraine, it read. My name is Patricia Chen. I saw what happened through the event planning community. I'm getting married next spring, and I need someone who has integrity, someone who won't let people walk over them. Would you be interested in planning my wedding? I stared at the message for a long moment. Integrity, not cheap or available or desperate for work. Someone had seen my story and thought, that's the person I want. Not despite what I'd done, but because of it. I walked to my office wall where 3 decades of event photos hung in neat frames. I took down one photo, my first big client from 1993, younger me beaming with pride. Behind it, a blank space on the wall. I pulled out Patricia's text and read it again, then typed slowly. I'd be honored. Let's schedule a consultation. I found a new frame in my drawer and placed it in the empty spot. Not a photo yet, just potential. I stepped back and looked at my wall, a map of who I'd been, who I was, who I might become. My phone buzzed again, Tyler's name. I silenced it and poured myself tea. Some people think getting older means you lose your edge, I thought. They're wrong, you just learn to cut deeper with precision. Generosity without documentation becomes exploitation. When someone dismisses your expertise, spends your money, and then erases your presence, silence doesn't preserve family. It enables abuse. This story teaches a hard truth. Keep records, not just for protection, but for dignity. Contracts aren't about distrust, they're about clarity. And when betrayal comes, the person who has evidence doesn't need to scream or argue or beg. They just need to share the truth. That's not revenge. That's accountability. I want to ask you something. Did I go too far, or did I do exactly what needed to be done? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I want to know what you think. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. I share new stories every week, and your support means everything. Thank you for listening.